Welcome, friends. Let's take a look at the role of the sixth house in Krishnamurti Paddhati, because sixth house plays a very important role in the Krishnamurti Paddhati, unlike in the traditional Parashar Jyotish, where it is not given too much of importance. See, when it comes to the material prosperity, Raj Yoga, and the gains in life, then in the traditional Parashar Jyotish, the Kendra Sthan, which is the ascendant, fourth, seventh, and the 10th, and then the Trikon, the fifth and the ninth. So these are given more importance in the tradition Parashar Jyotish, and the combination of these houses and how they play out in a person's horoscope decides about the degree of Rajyo or the success. But in KP, many of these houses like ascendant or the fourth, fifth, seventh, ninth, these are not given much importance when it comes to the uh, for the success, or we might call as the Rajyog in the Krishnamurti Paddhati. The most important houses in the Krishnamurti Paddhati are the one is the 11th house and second is the 6th house. Now the 11th house, we already discussed about the role of the 11th house in the Krishnamurti Paddhati. I created a video about a few weeks ago, and I'm going to post the link of this video in the description, so that you can also watch that video if you haven't, and it will give you a good idea about the magic of the 11th house in Krishnamurti Paddhati. Now the second most important house in the Krishnamurti Paddhati is the 6th house. And why it is 6th house? Very important in Krishnamurti Paddhati. When we take a closer look at the Krishnamurti's interpretation of the 6th house, so then you get to see the significance of the 6th house in a very new light. So let's first take an overview, a general overview about the 6th house and the various keywords and the attributes related to the 6th house, and then we'll discuss about the Krishnamurti's interpretation of the 6th house. Now if you look at the general overview, these are some of the keywords, and because every house in the Jyotish indicates so many things, and similarly 6th house also indicates so many things. My idea is not to overwhelm you, but it's a good idea just to have some kind of a quick overview about what the 6th house indicates. So I'm going to quickly read out disease, nursing and treatment of the sick, and then the dietary habit, service exhaustion. You might not be knowing about this service exhaustion, but the person who are overburdened with work and they get exhausted in their doing their office work or whatever, sometimes they are doomed to do a lot of manual labor work, so that results in what is called as the service exhaustion. So that also comes from the 6th house. It's a good idea to just have some idea about these things in life which are important. Then the employees, and then the subordinates or servants. Okay, I'm going to remove this word servant. This is a derogatory word, so we'll just stick with the employees and the subordinate. Then the debt or borrowing, you already might be knowing about it. And then the pet animals. Now these days there is a growing awareness towards the pet, and a lot of people are adopting pet, and there is a general good inclination toward the pet. And a lot of sometimes these questions about the pet, about their dog's health and all these start coming up. So you should be knowing that it is the sixth house that has everything to do with the pet animals. Then the tenants, this is also a very important keyword for the sixth house, and questions related to when I can get a new tenant for my building, or whether the tenant is going to vacate my building or not. So these kind of questions also comes up quite frequently. And then there is a bunch of other things that you can pause the video and take a look at it. Many of these things I would say are not meant for the natal horoscope. For example, pets. Now Krishnamurti has given some combination about the related to pet's lifespan and all that, but I would not recommend applying those to a natal chart. And for these questions the horary is best, and even for the questions such as the when I'm going to get a new tenant, or when can I kick out my existing tenant, for these also the horary astrology is best. So don't use the natal or the birth horoscope to answer these questions. These are tough from the natal horoscope. So these are some general keywords. And then there is also some important thing that I have extracted from these keywords are, and that I think you should take a note, is the sixth house is also connected with work and service rendered by the individual and exhaustion caused to him thereby. See, recently somebody contacted me, and strangely his question was about the exhaustion his current workload was giving him, and it seems like that person was even promoted and his team was expanded, and with this promotion and the team expansion, additional workload was given to him, rather than just a 9 to 5 kind of a job. It became a 7 to 7, or maybe a 6 to 9 p.m. kind of a job, and it became a thing of a great concern in that person's life, that he called me and he sent me his horoscope, and I could see that the Saturn, which is the karak for the menial or this kind of tedious work, was involved in the current Antardasha. And normally I would have obviously overlooked it when reading a horoscope, but since this was a very special query from that person, so that's why I started looking into it. So my idea about highlighting this is that usually when you are looking at the horoscope, you don't want to look at that during what dasha, antar or pratyanta the person might get exhausted. That's not the way. Unless and until your client or somebody has a specific query about the nature of exhaustion, then only you can focus on the sixth house from that angle. And then it also denotes his employees. Now, so whenever you look, you only find the word his, please substitute with his and her, because the his alone is a very male chauvinistic word, and wherever you find the word servant, that's a very derogatory word, so just remove it. I'm not going to do it again, but that's my request. So it also denotes the junior or the subordinate working under a person, whether they are going to be helpful or they are not going to be helpful. So these days in the office atmosphere, there are a lot of play of ego, jealousy and competitiveness. These things are becoming very visible. So this is one of the concerns that people have, that if they are leading a team, then whether they are going to get a proper support. And this is not only about an office environment. If you are running a business, then also the staff that is working under you, or if you are running an industry, then also the employees working under you. So that's also denoted by the sixth house. And these 2 points are the same, the one that I mentioned to you. Now the sixth house also indicate the food and the dietary habits. Sri Krishnamurti has pointed out that how each of these planets, when they signify the sixth house, and then they tend to influence a person's food and dietary habits. So Mercury, when Mercury is signifying the sixth house, the native has many fads and fancies regarding the diet. See, Mercury is a planet of duality. So the dietary habits of the person also get influenced by the dual nature of the Mercury. So they keep on experimenting, they keep on having some new and sometimes even weird thoughts about changing the diet. And then the Saturn is for the undernourishment. When people they tend to eat less, and that's the indicated by Saturn. And then the rest of the planets, how they influence the food and dietary habit, is you can see in all these points. See, these days there is a growing concern about the weight loss and the maintaining a good and balanced diet. So I thought that this is something important that I should bring to your notice. This is something we can, I'm planning to work on this, because I see a lot of these videos and some tips and tricks about a balanced diet that seems to navigate almost on a daily basis in my WhatsApp pages or in my social media pages. So people are interested in this, and I think from the astrology point of view, this thing could be expanded and some more insight could be obtained. So the planets, these are the planets, and this is how they indicate the food and the dietary habits. And one more thing I have noticed is that, especially in my case, I can see, or in some of my very close family members, I have seen that the dietary habits in many cases have remained stable throughout the life. If a person is have been fond of eating very spicy or the hot food and during the college days, and now when they are in their late, let's say 50s or 60s, even then they are still fond of having the same kind of taste. But in my case, I can say that this has changed a lot. So it seems to me that there is a dynamic angle also to the food and dietary habits, and it also depends on the dasha. Now let's look at the usual role that the sixth house plays, and which we are all familiar with. Whether you follow the traditional astrology or whether you are following the KP or some other astrology, then the sixth house, stands for the triple R. I would say the triple R. So, and what are those triple R? Those triple R are one is the rogue, so that's about the disease, and second R is for the rin, the debt or the borrowing, and the third is the ripu. The Sanskrit word ripu means the enemy. So R, and the rogue, rin, and ripu. These three things are denoted by the sixth house. We all know that. In the Parashar astrology also, the sixth house is primarily known to represent these three things. And in the Krishnamurti Paddhati also, the sixth house is used to assess these three things in a person's life. But the only thing is that in the Krishnamurti Paddhati, the interpretation of these keywords, especially this particular keyword, which I'm going to discuss in a while, is done in a absolutely new light, and it gives a very special status to the role of the sixth house. So we'll discuss that in a while. And the rogue. Let's first look at the rogue. I've already I did a video on the rogue thing and how the rogue related or the disease related combinations they play out in the Krishnamurti Paddhati. So I will mention the channel videos link in the description. From there you'll be able to find this video. And then the next thing is the debt or the borrowing. So this is also very important, because these days the whole new structure of living, the way of living has become very dependent on the borrowing. A person gets a job, and when he or she gets stabilized in the job, then they try to find a home, and they buy a home, and then they buy a car. So buying a home and buying a car is all now done through the borrowing or the debt from the bank, where a typical EMI is involved. So Shri Krishnamurti has mentioned that unless the sixth house is auspicious, people cannot have satisfactory assistance from the bank. Now these days bank will give the loan. They are there to give the loan. The idea here is that if the sixth house is good, in the sense that a person should be able to pay off the loan. Otherwise the pressure of the borrowing or the EMI is too much. And similarly for the businesses, the overdraft facility to run the business on smoothly, for that also they have to depend on the bank. So the overdraft facility is also seen from the sixth house. Now some of the combinations that I could think I have mentioned, because in the Krishnamurti Paddhati, the sixth house alone will not work, and it should join hands with the other houses. So some of the combinations are like 6 and 1. 6 and 1 shows self-exertion. It also indicates a minor ailment, but it's also a house of self-exertion. And then the 6 and 2, it shows loan or the borrowing. And then the 6-3, it shows gain from the short travel, and it also shows some kind of a dispute or a quarrel also. See, what happens is each of the houses has so many things to indicate, and the way they create the combination in Krishnamurti Paddhati, the same house, when it creates a combination with certain other houses, then it starts showing a different kind of a result. Now the 6 and 4, for the constructed house. See, usually in the Krishnamurti Paddhati you will not see the sixth house but in some of the articles Shri KSK has mentioned that if somebody is buying a constructed house, there are two things. Somebody buys a land and then construct a house. For that the combination is different. It is 4, 11 and 12. And then of course the Mars, Saturn, the Bhumikarak planets a role. But if somebody is buying a constructed house, then the sixth house has to be there, because sixth house indicates because the seventh house in Krishnamurti Paddhati indicate the other person. So somebody is already owning that property. The builder is already owning that property. And when the builder gives or let go of or gives possession, then that property is acquired by you. So sixth house is also involved. And if you look at the combination like this, now here also you see the sixth house is there, but what does this combination indicate? This combination indicates, the simply said, it indicates that the person is going to acquire some property. But if you want to elaborate this combination, then it indicates that this person will take a mortgage because of the 2 and 6, and then the sixth house also shows that this person is going to have a constructed house, and the ninth house over here shows that this person is going to acquire a flat or an apartment in a society building. So that this combination indicates, but you need not worry about it. It's not possible for someone to look into a birth horoscope or a natal chart and come up with this detailed explanation. But of course, if somebody approaches you with a specific question, and I'm talking about the horary astrology, in that case, then you can look at this combination, and from your side, then you can additionally add certain more things. And then the 6th and 5 is gain in speculation. 6-7 indicates the litigation. 6-7 also indicates the partner or the spouse going away. And 6th and 8 is not a good house, is not a good combination. It is a bad luck combination. And 6-9 shows that a person will be successful, will have some kind of a stroke of luck after some competition. 6-10 is a very good combination for the job. 6-11 is for the gain, and 6-12 is for the loss. So you need not worry about it too much, and because eventually there are just 3 or 4 combination around 6th house that you should be focused on when interpreting a horoscope. And because each of these combination, the one that I mentioned here, can have other flavors or other colors also. Let me give you an example. For example, 6 and 3, or this can also be interpreted as, if you look at this combination of 6 and 3, then Shri Krishnamurti is also mentioned that one is helped during short journeys. Why one is helped during short journeys? Because 3rd house is the house of assistance, and the 3rd house also indicates the journey, and 6th house indicates gain. So one is helped during short journeys, also gains through neighbors, cousins, and younger siblings. Okay, and then but if the same 6th house has this kind of a combination with 8, right, then interpretation changes. Then Krishnamurti says that one may receive annoying and irritating letters, reminders, and even notices for the repayment of loans, because 3rd house is the house of communication, correspondence, mail, and 6 and 8 is not a good combination. So when 3rd house join hands with the 6th house along with the 8th house, then it starts giving the bad result. So the idea is that there are several different combinations around the 6th house, but we should only be concerned with the major thing related to the 6th house that I'm going to discuss in a while. This is just an overview to give you the scope about the 6th house. Now let's look at the 3rd R in the RRR of the 6th house, and that 3rd R is the Ripu, or the enemy. The Sanskrit word Ripu means enemy. This particular interpretation of the 6th house has given a new life, I would say a new respect to the significance of the sixth house in Krishnamurti Paddhati. I remember in my home there were a lot of these the kundali, there was a scroll, the one that used to fold, roll up, and those kind of kundalis about of my brothers and sisters and other family members. There were the interpretation done by the local Pandit astrologer, and most of the time I would notice that there were a couple of sentences mentioned. One was Shatru par Vijay, and second was the Shatru se Klesh, which basically means that victory over the enemies, and second was the some concern from the enemies. And at that time I could never understand that what exactly is meant by this. I had no Shatru or enemies. I had a large number of friends, and mostly I have had a very friendly relationship with almost everyone, and so was with my brothers and sisters also. So this particular phrase that used to appear a lot many times, the about the victory over enemy, that was a very mysterious. Even today also, if you look at some of the interpretation of the of a person who is running the sixth house dasha or antardasha, still the same old phrase is used, the victory over enemies or loss by enemies. But what exactly is this enemy? So that is what, for that we have to look at how Shri Krishnamurti has interpreted that what exactly is an enemy in the modern context. So let's go back to this particular drawing board, and I'm going to remove all these and just focus on the horoscope from the Krishnamurti point of view. Now in Krishnamurti Paddhati, what Shri KSK has done is that he has divided the house, they divided the zodiac, all 12 houses, into two groups. And so 6 houses are out of these 12, there is a certain number of certain houses that are going to favor you, and then there are other remaining 6 houses that are going to favor your opponent or your enemy or the person with whom you are going to transact. So first let's look at the houses that are going to favor you, and those are the ascendant, the second house, the third house, so these 6 houses are always favorable to you, and the rest of the houses, the 6 houses, they are not good for you. When I say not good, that basically means not good from the material gains or the Raja Yoga or being successful in life. So the house 1, 2, 3, 6, 10 and 11, these are the houses that are going to be favorable. And for this you have to understand that this house, this particular house indicates, the ascendant indicates you, and the 7th house indicates just about every single person that you are going to interact with, or just any person that you are going to have a transaction with. It could be your partner, it could be your wife, it could be your enemy, or it could be a person standing in line next to you, or just about anyone you meet in your day-to-day life, in office, in work, in some network or event, or in some parties. Every single person on planet Earth apart from you is indicated by the 7th house. Now when it comes to the the gain and the loss, then the 12th house indicates your loss. 12th house is the house of loss for you. This is a very bad house when it comes to the gain and loss. That you know, in the traditional Parashar Jyotish also, the 12th house is a bad house. And now when we say about the other person, so the other person's loss becomes his or her 12th house, which basically means the 6th house. So when you are losing something because of the 12th house, then this person represented by the 7th house is gaining. And when this person, the represented by the 7th house, is losing something, then you are gaining. So what we can now say is, we can summarize this, and we can say is, right, the 12th house is your loss, the 7th house represents the opponent, so the 6th house, which becomes the 12th, is the opponent's loss, thus it is your gain. So we can elaborate this further, and then we can say that the loss of one party is beneficial to another party, which you see all the time, that if somebody is losing, somebody else is making a profit out of it, or somebody is being benefited. One party gains at another party's expense. One person's loss in a transaction is equal to another person's gain. See, this is also a part of the modern enterprise or the modern economy, where a lot many times when two persons are transacting, then one person is losing and the other person is gaining. So when it comes to the 6th house denoting your open enemy, so the open enemy is not the enemy that is holding some kind of a weapon and charging towards you. No, that's not your enemy. The enemy is just about so many people with whom you are transacting on a daily basis, and you want to be ahead of that competition. That is what is meant by the victory over enemies when it comes to the 6th house. And some of the things that keep happening around us is like, the speculation, the race, the betting, the matches like the cricket match and the other sports match, the films. Suppose if some actor is looking to get a role in the film, and he or she gets into a competition with some other actor, so there's already a competition, there is an enemy out there. And then the competitive examinations, when somebody is appearing for the medical or the IAS, then again there is an open enemy. Every single student that is going to compete against you is represented by the 7th house. So their gain is your loss and their loss is your gain. So when you look at the importance of the 6th house in this context, in the context in which Krishnamurti ji is explaining, then you will have a very good handle that why 6th house is very important in a person's life. You go for a job interview, right? In the job interview also, there are other candidates, and when the promotion is due in the business or in your career, then also you get into a competition. Then of course there are legal disputes, and this is not only confined to you as a person. The role of the 6th house expands and it covers the corporate houses as well, because if you look at the big corporation, they are also perpetually locked into some kind of a competition, when it comes to the contract bidding on the global level, then the competition is there. So so the sixth house indicates that the other person is going to lose, and therefore it becomes your gain. And similarly, the 12th house indicates that you are going to lose, and then the other person is going to win. Now, if you read Krishnamurti's article and book, this particular aspect about the sixth house, Krishnamurti keeps on hammering this particular aspect. He wants us to understand that the sixth house plays a very important role when it comes to the material success or the gains in a person's life. And without the blessing of the sixth house, a person will not be successful in his or her life. Now let's try to apply this rule, keeping the various age in a person's lifespan. So now let's look at the various lifespan. Now this is when I would say schooling year, right? Schooling years. Now in the schooling years, if the sixth house, 6 or 10, these are this combination is there in the dasha, antar or pratyantar, then of course at that time a person is of very tender age. But these days what is happening is that there is a very competitive environment that has been created in the school, and that's very unfortunate, but that's the reality. And the parents like their kids to be successful even at that level, where the son or daughter might be studying in maybe 6th grade or 8th grade. Even at that age they want them to be successful, and so they motivate them to become competitive in various activities like the elocution or the debate competition or the presentation skills and the sports. So at that time, if a person is running the dashantar pratantar, where 610 or somehow 6th house is involved, 310 is also there, 3 6s also will work. So if these houses are there, then that particular person at that age in the schooling years will bring some kind of a accomplishment or achievement to their home. Now this is the lifespan of the exams, job, marriage, etc., right? This particular age group. So exams we have already discussed, that if somebody is preparing for the competitive exam like medical or IIT or the IAS, then sixth house plays a very major role. There is a huge competition these days, and so one need to have a strong sixth house dasha, antar or pratyantar at the time of the examination or at the time of when the results are announced. Then only a person can be successful. Otherwise he or she might have to reappear in the same exam. And then when they are applying for the job also, at that time this particular dasha is required, the 2, 6 and 10, because the second house indicates the bank balance, and the 6th house is also the house of day-to-day service, and the 10th house is the house of profession. So again the 6th house becomes important in this particular age group, and one must have this 2, 6 and 10 combination play out at the appropriate age level. Then he or she can get a proper job. And if 11th house is also involved, then one can get a dream job, or one will be satisfied about whatever job opportunity he or she gets. And this is also the time when for marriage also. So sixth house is not directly has to do with the marriage, but sixth house is one of the houses that has to do with the denial of the marriage, because the seventh house indicates the marriage and the sixth house being the 12th, so it negates. So sixth house is also is the denial. So that you have to keep in mind that during that age group, when a person is eligible for marriage, then the role of the sixth house along with some other houses like 1 and 10 should not be too loud, otherwise it creates hurdles in the marriage prospects. Then again, this particular age group is where a person is trying to build a house and look for a promotion. So again, I mentioned about the a house. So the sixth house will again play a role, and every time this person gets a 2, 6 and 10 combination in the dasha, mukti and antar, then he and she can expect some kind of a status enhancement in whatever business or profession they are in, and the Raj Yoga also plays out because of the 2, 6 and 10. This is a very happening period in a person's life where the role of the 2, 6, 10 is definitely required. I think in both here when the person is trying to seek a job, and here when the person has a job and now he is trying to win some more success in life. Now see, one of the things that you should note about this sixth house is that too much of sixth house along with 2, 6 and 10, these houses are the houses for the material success, but too much of 2, 6, 10 is also not good. What happens is that this makes a person very successful in life, the 2 and 6 because the sixth house will help person beat all kind of a competition, and so that way the person stands out. But at the same time, the 6 and 10 being the house that negates marriage also. So this is not a good combination. First it creates two, if majority of the planets are significator of 2 and 6 and 10, that is what Krishnamurti has mentioned, then a person will have a good material success in life. But at the same time, Krishnamurti has also warned that too much of 6 and 10 without the other supporting or houses like 7 and 11 creates a crisis in the marriage life of a person, and especially in this age bracket where I would say the midlife crisis is the part of the story, and at that time the proliferation of the sixth house along with the 10th house is not really a good combination. It might give success, but it can create other problems in life. The idea about this various age group is that you can see how the sixth house is playing out in the various age brackets. One of the things I forgot to mention about it, that one question also comes about the scholarship, or somebody is going overseas, or somebody is applying for some higher education and they need a scholarship. At that time also, scholarship is a kind of borrowing. So at that time also the role of the sixth house becomes very important. And then the old age. Now the sixth house is usually related with the minor or the small problems, but in the old age, even the minor or the small problem sometimes needs some closer attention, especially when the sixth house gets connected with the 8th house and the 12th house. At that time the small minor problem could actually translate into some major health issue. So these are some of this is how the role of the sixth house at various age group plays out. Now I was also trying to take a horoscope where I was thinking of identifying the every single period in a person's horoscope that has something to do with 6, 2, 6 and 10, and map it with the real life event, that what exactly happened at that person's life. But since this video has already become a very long video, so I think I will take that as a practical application, as a practical example, where I will just focus on the role of the 2, 6 and 10 in a person's life. So now to sum it all up, so you had an overview and you saw that how sixth house has a relationship with too many questions in life, but at the end of it, it's just the triple R, the rogue and the rin, and then the ripu or the enemy. That's what you should be focusing when you are looking at a person's horoscope. So hopefully I'll try to create the second part of this video. Thanks for watching.